Hello. Today I'm going to be first off I'm going to turn down the volume so you can hear me. Game volume. I guess we can have it up a little bit. So today I'm going to be doing a little deck talk with our deck we've been trying to climb to legend with. The Reno Druid. So we've been doing alright with the deck. We've been climbing. The star bonus certainly helps there. I think I had to look at our games, but if I had to guess, our win rate is a little bit below 50% right now. And the deck, a lot of the wins, it feels like we get them when our opponent doesn't draw super well or when they make some pretty big misplays. It seems like when our opponent draws okay to good, or when they play well, the deck struggles, and that's not a good sign. Now this, of course, is not a tier 1 deck. I wasn't expecting like a crazy win rate with it or anything, but I do feel like we could make it better. And one thing I've been thinking about is a lot of the losses we get are when we just fall behind on board and there's really no way for us to catch up outside of Zephyrus. We have solid removal options that are good at single target small minions, but if opponent goes wide, we have nothing. And the reason for that is I didn't really like what Druid has to offer for its board wipes. We've got Spreading Plague. It's not even a board wipe, but it's a catch-up tool. There's Starfall, there's Swipe, and there's Poison Seeds. Swipe and Poison Seeds. Swipe is okay, just on its own. It's not super amazing. 1 damage is pretty small, but at least you get to do 4 to 1. It's more of a single target removal than it is a board wipe, but let's see, the other one was Poison Seeds. Poison Seeds is just really bad. You give your opponents 2/2s for each one you destroy. You need to follow it up with something else. Starfall is one of the things you could follow it up with, but on its own, Starfall's pretty bad. 5 mana for 2 to all enemy minions is a terrible rate. 5 mana for 5 damage to 1 minion is not very great either. It's almost passable. The choose 1 aspect helps the card a little bit, but just the fact that each mode is so bad makes me not like playing Starfall. The one Druid catch-up tool that is okay to run on its own is Spreading Plague. If your opponent has 3 minions, this is probably just worth it to play. Any more beyond that, it just becomes really good. It is a card you could play for a way to catch up on board. And the neutral options aren't great. It's like MC Tech, Mind Control Tech, that is. If our opponent has 4 more minions, we can steal 1 of them. It's not great, it's really RNG dependent. If they have like a couple big minions and a lot of small minions, we just have to pray that we hit the big minion. If they only have small minions, it's not doing too much, it's just removing 1 of them. And we're getting it on our side of the board, but if our opponent has that big of a board, we're usually losing, so not super great. There's a couple other cards. There is Bruiser. Second rate Bruiser. This guy can become a 3 mana 4/5 if our opponent is starting to swarm. And it's not terrible, but it doesn't really catch us up enough to take back a board. There's a couple other taunts like Bruiser, and all of them are about the same effective. So as far as coming back once we're behind, it's kind of hard to do as Druid. It can be done. But so the other So there was two directions I was thinking of taking this deck. One is where we just, because right now, the problem with the deck right now is we lose the board and we just can't come back short of drawing Zephyrus. And Zephyrus, we need him for so many things. We need him, like, if our opponent has a weapon, we need him to give us ooze. If our opponent's going wide, we need him to board wipe. If we're going long, we need him for value. Oftentimes, one board wipe is not enough, so we need multiple of him. And yes, we can duplicate him, but that's not always easy to do. Sometimes when you board wipe, you usually need to board wipe now. You need to board wipe when you need the board wipe. You don't have time to duplicate Zephyrus. And so relying on him for everything is not working out too well. And so I was thinking, so back to my idea, there's two ways we could take this deck. One is where we go, okay, we just say, well, you know what, we lose the board. We're not as good as other decks as just putting out tons of stats. Let's just accept that and then put in board wipes. They might not be the best board wipes, but at least they're board wipes. The other way we could go is going more all in on trying to not lose the board. And that was kind of what I was originally thinking with this deck. I just didn't realize how bad we were at that. Dirty Rat is just pretty much a dead card in that game plan a lot of the time. There were so many games where this was sitting in my hand and I just didn't want to play it because we would lose stats most likely on it or come out even at best. Cartoot, surprisingly really bad when you're just trying to fight for board. It's good if you're stalling for time, it's good with Enzoth, but 6 mana for a 3/4 is so bad. And sure, someone's a 3/1, but 1 health is so easy to pick off. It's, in a way, you could think of this as a 6 mana 3/5 taunt, which is terrible. Sludge Belcher, not much better. Better, but not much better. It's 5 mana 3/5, which is, this is kind of like, this was like a 6 mana 3/5, and then this gets a 1/2 after it's dead. So it's a bit better, still not great. We have some draw cards that aren't the best tempo either, and we just don't do anything broken like a lot of the board-centric decks do in Wild, whether it's even Shaman cheating out huge minions or their hero power giving them extra stats, or Odd Demon Hunter with their hero power controlling the board, or Secret Mage with the 0 mana Cabal Crystal runners, or even Quest Mage with their giants that they sometimes tempo out. It's just this deck struggles at fighting for board in the Wild format. The current iteration, at least. So one way, we could try to make it better at fighting for board. And so were you to go that route, you would definitely cut Dirty Rat, and you would not run Cartoot. If you're not running Cartoot, you probably don't want Enzoth. Without Enzoth, you probably don't run Sludge Belcher. Witchwood Piper, you probably don't want that. Spellbreaker's okay at fighting for board. 5 mana 5/5's okay. 5 mana 5/5, good enough. Oasis Searcher, actually good. Jackson, not great 4/6, but you play him. Furion's okay. Floop can be good. Fendrill's okay. Branching Path's not great, but you probably still run it. It's just super flexible, and it does have board applications when you can buff your board with it. Zola, you might cut. And so even though you'd be going board-centric, you're still a value deck in the end. It's just, you try to fight for board as your control style aspect of the deck. You still want your duplicate effects with Elise, Floop, and Zola, so you can go infinite. So noticeably, we don't have Enzoth. We lost a lot of our top game. What I would want to run here is Baleful Banker for more value. Yeah, so there he is. So this guy, 2 mana 2/2, much better than 10 mana 5/7 than Enzoth is. Well, I mean, Enzoth is a lot more than a 5/7. It's just a 10 mana card you don't want to play in a deck where you're trying to fight for board. 2 mana 2/2, not great, but still better. So this will help us just in the value games where we don't have Enzoth anymore. We can do Baleful Banker. Something to note, Archspor Mishfin is a death rattle that I thought I was only playing because of Enzoth, but this guy is actually good for tempo. He's just way better than I realized. A 3-mana 3/4 taunt is really good, and the card he shuffles in, although it's 10 mana, it's just pretty good, and when it's just attached to a good tempo card for the early game, it's just a good card. Plated Beetle's another death rattle card we were running, not great. 2 mana 2/3 is okay for tempo, but without Enzoth, there's just no reason to run it. Let's see. So, with this direction that the deck is going, you'd want a few more cycle cards, because Baleful Banker needs other cards to work with. We've already got a lot of cards that need help to work with each other, so we'd want a little bit more cycle. You could run Thalnos. And Thalnos is actually quite excellent, because he can cycle and give you tempo with his spell damage +1, whether it's through Living Root, Spellstone, Wrath. You might want to run Swipe in this version. It helps fight for that tempo that we are going for. And it's flexible, so we can, with the tempo-oriented deck, there's always the possibility of trying to close out lethal quickly, and Swipe helps with that. And it's another reason to run Zephyrus. It's another reason that we want to keep Branching Paths. Let's see what else. In this version of the deck, so we're looking for tempo cards. Alright, so another cycle card that's not terrible on tempo is going to be Alkaloid of Pain. This guy, he's a 3-mana 1/3, which, okay, that sounds pretty bad, but as far as drawing cards goes, he can oftentimes draw you 2 cards while also doing putting a 1/3 body out. So for drawing cards, he's pretty good. Like, you compare this guy to the Witchwood Piper that we had in. Witchwood Piper draws 1, Alkaloid usually draws between 1 and 2. And it's 1 less mana, and okay, he has 2 less attack for 1 less mana, but you're likely to draw an extra card off of it. It's pretty good. Not the best for tempo, I suppose, but I think we still want it in this version of the deck. Alright, I think we have enough cycle. We would just probably want some more early game control cards to help us control the board. You could run Crystal Power. 1 mana deal 2 is good enough usually, and it has synergy. It doesn't really have synergy with Fendril, but it does have synergy with Steladris. You would, the 1 mana restore 5 part of the card you'd almost never use, but 1 mana deal 2 is pretty good. So you could run that. Naturalize is actually good for tempo. You don't want your opponent drawing 2 cards, but the tempo might be worth it. You could run Darnassus Aspirant. It's actually just a decent card. I think a lot of people forget about it. 2 mana 2/3 is okay, and then being up a mana if it survives is great for tempo. Unfortunately for us, we don't have too many 4-drops we want to ramp into with it. The best would be Fendril. Everything else is kind of reactionary or combo-centric. So I don't think we would run that here. You could run... what is it called? Here we go. Bog Beam. Just for when you're at 7 mana, having a 0 mana deal 3 is kind of nice, but it's not super nice, and 3 mana deal 3 is pretty bad when you're not at 7 mana. Probably wouldn't run that, actually. Okay, so I know. So back to those neutral cards that are kind of like board wipes. So you could run Second Rate Bruiser, you could run MC Tech. So a nice thing about this deck, this version of the deck, is we have more cycle. So we had taken out the Dirty Rat, but against combo, Loatheb is usually just as good. And now that we have more cycle, we have better chances of drawing into it, so we don't need another card against combo. Loatheb should be good enough. So we like that. So you could put an MC tech, you could put in one of those 1-drops I had mentioned, Crystal Power or Naturalize. I don't want to put in too many 1-drops. It's pretty rare, but there are some people that play Skulkengeist. You could play as if there's not Skulkengeist. I hate getting blown out by that Geist, so I try not to run too many 1-drop spells. And it's just because of a feeling thing. If you're just going for win percentage, you probably don't care about it. It's just not played much. Yeah, so you could kind of take your pick for the last card. Mind Control Tech is probably what... Well, actually, I might run Spreading Plague for the last card in this. It's actually okay tempo-wise if you've lost the board. And even with our extra focus on trying to go for the board with the changes we've made, with the Bruiser, with the Baleful Banker as the value part, and the Thalmos to help cycle and also give us tempo. Even with all those changes, we still have cards that we just sandbag in our hands sometimes, like Elise, Reno, Malfurion, or the Baleful Banker is not super amazing. We might, and our draw cards, sometimes we will just lose the board, and so it might be nice to have a catch-up tool. This is probably what I would do if I were to go that route. However, I really just like Enzoth as a card. It's one of my favorites. It's why I have crafted gold. And so I'm going to go with the other direction. And that's where we say, okay, we're just going to accept that we lose the board in most games, and so we're going to run board wipes or catch-up tools. So, we're going to kind of give up on the plan to just fight for board early. So, Beetle really isn't doing too much. I was playing as a 2/3 to help fight for board, but I don't think we want that. Living Roots, same reason, we don't need it. It's we're going for a much more traditional control style heavy deck, and you just don't want 1 mana deal 2 in that style of deck. Let's see, what else? So this is still just too good that you want to run it, because even though it's a 1 mana deal 2, it's easy to upgrade it to 1 mana deal 4, which is just insane. And if you get it to 1 mana deal 6, it's super insane. It's actually quite doable. We have 2 cards that can upgrade it all the way on their own. There is Malfurion, and there is what is it? The 4 mana Branching Paths, and both of those cards alone will upgrade it. And you can just hero power upgrade it, and 1 mana deal. And when it's 1 mana deal 2 damage, it's not super great, but it's still okay. Crystal Merchant, I've always been happy to draw it. Almost always, it's a 1/4 for 2 is not terrible for tempo, and you can. The fact that you can just control when you want to draw and not draw with it is really nice for this deck. Sometimes we really want to draw, and sometimes we need to dump our hand for targeting Elise duplications, so we can use it flexibly that way, and it's just a good rate for drawing cards. Dirty Rat, I have not been liking. You would normally run the Dirty Rat in this style of slow tempo where we plan to lose the board, so I think he'll be okay. Druid of the Swarm, you could take this out now that we're not fighting for board. The 1/2 poisonous is almost never going to be able to stick, and so the only mode you probably get away with playing is the 1/5 taunt. However, the 1/5 taunt really fits into the board plan well. The board plan with this is we just stall until we get a board wipe, and then we take back the board. And the 2 mana 1/5 taunt is great for stalling. Steladris, good value, good tempo, works with Starfall, which we are going to be putting in. Rising Winds, now Rising Winds becomes a lot more questionable with this new direction. The draw mode is okay, 4 mana draw 2, not the best, but it's okay, and the fact that you can split it up over multiple turns is good. The synergy with Steladris exists, the synergy with Fendril exists. But unfortunately, the 3-2 Eagles become much worse when we're not playing that tempo style anymore. The 2 health means they can get traded into easily. We're not fighting for board as much, so we can't protect them as much. You could consider cutting that. For this moment, I'm going to keep them in. We'll see if it's in by the end, though. Wrath is good. I like Wrath. You can cycle it. You can do 2 mana for 3. 2 mana for 3 damage is a good rate. I would run this card probably even if I didn't have Steladris or Fendril, but it also happens to have synergy with them. It's great. Zephyrus, best card in the deck. Definitely going to keep it. Archspore, excellent card. Great at stalling. Okay tempo. Not that we're going for that anymore, but still, it's something that is not bad to have tempo. And then it has good synergy with Enzoth. Great card. Bees. Bees we could cut now. Bees is more of that tempo style. What's great about Bees is that you can either remove a minion that has 4 health, or you can remove a minion that has less than 4 health and be left over with 1/1s, which you can use to trade off against other minions or just push tempo. Now that tempo is not the name of our game, we mostly just want good removal. However, 3 mana deal 4 is not that bad. It's not super great. Another reason that we might cut Bees here is now that we're running Spreading Plague, we might have wide boards and we might not be able to always summon 4/1/1 Bees. So Bees might be going out. In fact, I think it will. We'd rather have other ways of fighting for board. Bran. Now Bran is another card I've been thinking about. He's good with Zephyrus, he's good with Zola, and he's good with Lotheb. Now he's also good with Wishwood Piper, that's in the deck. The other battle cry of Enzoth is just not likely that you're going to brand Enzoth, and oftentimes it won't matter because you'll have a full board from the first battle cry of Enzoth anyways. Reno doesn't do anything to duplicate that battle cry, and Elise, it's too hard to have a small enough hand where we want to double Bran with her. So really Bran comes down to, and Spellbreaker, doubling that doesn't do anything. So it comes down to really the Lotheb, which it's nice to brand, but usually one Lotheb effect is all you need for him to do his work. You really don't need the brand for that. But it's okay. It's just kind of like an extra thing. You wouldn't run brand just to double Lotheb. You would need a lot more. So but it's nice. Witchwood Piper is okay with Bran. Although I'm not sure I'm actually going to keep the Witchwood Piper in the deck right now. Zola's good. Zola is good with Bran. Zephyrus is pretty good with Bran. One downside to Zephyrus with Bran is that Zephyrus gives you the best card for the current board state, and usually it takes up all of your mana. So the second card you pick with him, you usually can't play till the next turn, and by then the board state's different, and he gives specific cards a lot of the time, and so that specific card that was good for the board state the previous turn might not be as good. So he's not as amazing as you would think with Zephyrus, but he's still pretty good. Oh, and sometimes Dirty Rat he's good with. Alright, so before we actually, there's a few more changes I need to make first before we talk about Bran. One card I have been wanting to put into this deck, and actually I think it should have gone in the other version of the Tempo deck too, is Grizzled Wizard. This guy, 2 mana, 3/2, Battlecry, swap hero powers with your opponent until your next turn. So this is mostly just good in the meta I've been facing lately. What he does, so there's a couple matchups. The best matchup he shines in is against Raza Priest. In Raza Priest, you can play him followed up by Malfurion, and basically what happens, so you take their Anduin hero power, and then you change your hero power to Malfurion, and they have your Druid hero power. And then at the end of the turn, it switches back, and so they get the Malfurion hero power back. You get your Druid hero power back, and suddenly the Raza Anduin hero power is just gone from the game. There goes their deck. GG. If you don't draw Malfurion with the Grizzled Wizard, he's still good in that matchup. He can buy you 1 turn against their combo with our ways to duplicate him in our deck. Elise, Floop, and Zola. You can just stall for quite a while. So one thing you could do is just play him like 2 turns in a row with your duplication effects, and then until you hopefully draw into Malfurion to get rid of their hero power for good. So it says until your next turn, so even during your opponent's next turn, they don't get the hero power. So he's pretty good there. Some other matchups where he's good is against Demon Hunter. You can play him on turn 3. He's really good, and then you get their 1 mana hero power that does 2 damage, so you can probably remove one of their minions. You have a 3/2. Normally would be bad against Demon Hunter, but they have your hero power for that turn, so they don't have the 1 mana deal too, so he's safe to stick on the board. So he's pretty good there. You can even play him on turn 2 against the Demon Hunter just to deny their hero power and put down a 3/2. He's also quite good against Warlock, just because, hey, we'll take a life tap and stop them from life tapping for 1 turn. And I've been facing quite a few Warlocks. He's okay against Totem Shaman, even Shaman. You can stop them from making a totem, and you can take a totem yourself. It's not the best. We don't take advantage of the totems the best with this deck, but it's okay in that matchup. In pretty much every other matchup, he's not very good, but I'm just seeing so many Raza Priests and Warlocks and odd Demon Hunters that I think I want to run him. And so the thing to note about him with Bran is that he does not work if you have Bran out, because he'll swap twice, so it'll just basically, the 2 swaps will cancel each other out, and you'll be exactly where you started. So he's actually not good with the Bran. And so I'm heavily thinking of taking out Bran. Alright, so let's see something. Oh, let's keep taking out a few more cards. So I think we are going to take out the Bran. Right now he has bad synergy with Grizzled Wizard, and the best cards that we're doing Bran with are Zephyrus, Zola, and then maybe Witchwood Piper if this stays in the deck. And you don't run Bran for just 1 or 2 cards, and it's not like game winning if we're branding a Zola or a Zephyrus. Okay. Branding a Zola might be game winning in some slow matchups, but it's pretty optimistic, I think. And just in the matchups where we're not going for value, 3 mana 2/4 is just not what we want to be doing. So we're gonna cut the Bran. And I think I'm thinking of also cutting the Dirty Rat. The matchups it's good in are the slow combo decks like Mecha'thun Warlock. He would be good in Raza Priest, but we already have Grizzled Wizard, which now just wins us that matchup on its own. So we don't really need it against Raza Priest. It's against Mecha'thun Warlock, we will be worse off. We can beat Mecha'thun Warlock with just a few Loatheb turns. And now that we're running the Grizzled Wizard, we can stop them from life tapping for 1 turn and get our own life tap to draw closer to the Loatheb. So I'm thinking we probably don't need Dirty Rat. There might be some other fringe combo decks that we run into where we might wish we had Dirty Rat, but there's so many Q blocks where this is just a dead card, and just other matchups where, like aggro matchups, where we really don't want the Dirty Rat. So I don't think we're gonna run the Dirty Rat. So the other card I was thinking was taking out Witchwood Piper. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2-drops currently, so we have a 1 in 5 chance of hitting Zephyrus with the Piper. We also want to draw Grizzled Wizard a lot of the time, And these two are okay to draw off of it. Same with Steladris. Alright, I'm just going to keep in mind we might take out that. Well, I'm not sure yet. Definitely want to put in those board wipes I was talking about. Definitely Spreading Plague. Reluctantly Starfall, it's what we've got as Druid. And Poison Seeds would be the other one. Okay. Is there anything else we're not too happy with? Everything else looks pretty good. Piper I'm still considering. I think we probably want the Alkaloided Pain. I've been realizing how much I miss that card in a lot of matchups lately where we've run out of gas. And just drawing to our combinations of cards is pretty good. So let's take a look at our curve. See what happened after all these changes. Okay, we have too many 4-drops it looks like, and our 3-drop count is pretty high. Our 5-drop count is pretty high. The 5-drop count has always been pretty high with this deck, just because I really want to run Elise, I really want to run Lotheb, Oasis Surger is really good, and then Sludge Belcher is pretty good with Enzoth. Now we added Starfall. Yikes. Maybe we don't run Starfall, but we gotta run Starfall for running Poison Seeds in this game plan, unfortunately. So I think we're gonna keep the Starfall. One thing to note, with the Tempo deck we added in that Blood Mage Thalnos, and normally I would add that to this deck as well. It works with our spell damage cards, especially with the Starfall. However, the Thalnos is a Death Rattle card, so it gets resummoned with Enzoth. We like to duplicate our Enzoths in slow matchups, and in slow matchups you don't want to be constantly bringing back Thalnos, drawing cards going into fatigue. So we can't really run Thalnos in this style of deck. If it wasn't for the Enzoth, I definitely would run the Thalnos, but like I said, I like Enzoth. I want to try and make Enzoth work in this. And if we're going to make Enzoth work, we need to stall and be able to clear out boards more often. So I said our 4-drops are too high. Alright, so we're going to take out that Witchwood Piper. I've been thinking of taking it out, and having too many 4-drops seals that deal. I would ideally take out a 5-drop as well, and put in like a 2. 2-drop, 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 2-drop. Could run this, but no. I know. We're gonna keep our Dirty Rat. It just works too well with the style deck with the Poison Seeds, and let them have a big board, and then we can Spreading Plague and we can make comebacks against big boards. The Dirty Rat's better in that situation. It's gonna be still bad against Q-Block, but now that we have Poison Seeds again against Q-Block, that helps. Starfall and Spreading Plague, not the best against Q-Block, but Spreading Plague at least stalls for turns so we can get to Enzoth. You could run Doomsayer, is another option. Let's see, I was looking at, that's an option. We could take out Starfall for Doomsayer. Doomsayer is nice with coming back against lost boards, and while we don't have freeze effects, we have really high HP taunts with Druid of the Swarm, Dirty Rat. There's a lot of health to get through. Sludge Belcher and Kartut Defender and Spreading Plague and Malfurion are all lots of taunts to put out that the Doomsayer can hide behind. I think we might run it instead of the Starfall. Yeah, our 5-drops is just, we have too many 5-drops. We could use more 1 or 2-drops. We don't want to run any more 1-drops with this style. I think we're going to play Doomsayer instead of Starfall. Alright, we're going to at least try this list out for some time. So here's the new list we're trying out with. Main thing is we took out a lot of the cards that are trying to fight for tempo and just say, no, we're going to lose the board. That's okay. We have some ways to catch up with Poison Seeds, Doomsayer, Spreading Plague. Alright. Let's see how we